Hello, everyone. All right, let's see if we can stop the music and see how it's going. Let me know if you can hear me in the comments. Thanks for being here. I'm sure you're all aware what we are here to discuss today is the whole legislation that people are trying to put out that's going to be basically capping the pay on nursing, specifically travel nurses. Um, I thought we could discuss because this ruffled my feathers, and I am not even a travel nurse. So I assumed it was going to ruffle other people's feathers, but we're going to approach it to try to see. Obviously, you're going to get my opinions because you never escape without my opinions. And then we're going to look at kind of like the facts of like what is the legislation actually saying, without all of the drama, and what is it aimed towards, what's it trying to do. And then I will give you more of my opinions. I'd love to hear all of your opinions as we go through. I'll look through and that's why I like doing these live because we can like actually hear what you're saying. And then at the very end, I have a little bit of an outsider's opinion because I have very strong opinions. And actually, I was talking to my mom today, who's also a nurse, and she agrees with me. And I have someone else who has very strong opinions. I don't know if she wants to be named, but I'm sure you'll be able to guess who it is. It's my sister. She thinks very differently about it. And it's very, very interesting to just see an outside of healthcare perspective on this entire thing because it was a side of things that I had never thought of. I still think she's wrong, but she has a very valid point. So I just like bringing in all different aspects. So thanks everyone who is here. If you are watching this on the replay, there will be timestamps down below if you want to just get a specific section. We have a schedule today to try to keep me on track. We're going to see if it works. And I'm excited. If you're new here and you've never watched any of my stuff, I was going to say Nurse Liz, and I was like, that's really awkward. I don't know why I almost said that. I'm Liz. I'm a family nurse practitioner. I make YouTube videos all about like nursing things and life things and mom things. And I just moved. So that's why we have a green screen today because my vacuum is like right here. And rather than spending the time that I probably spent like 20 minutes trying to get everything set up and find a cute background for it. Could I have just unpacked a little bit and cleaned up my room during that time? Oh, for sure. Did I choose to do that? Absolutely not. So let's just take a brief moment and see who is here so far before we dive in. And I'll show you our table of contents and all of the goodness that we're going to be doing. Kevin said, if they do this, why would anyone become a travel nurse? I agree, friend. I agree. Also, just vacuuming downstairs. So if you hear him, he is installing smart switches. I don't really know entirely what those are, but he has our brand new wall. So we just moved into a new house, and the wall is like mostly on the floor. It's like just drywall dust, and I'm just trying not to panic. And it's fine. The power keeps going on and off. I was like, I need the internet to be here. So, but I agree, Kevin. No one would be a travel nurse. And we're going to discuss that. They'd be crazy to do that. They would should be raising staff pay. Exactly. I agree. My hospital charges $117 for me to insert a Foley catheter. It takes 12 minutes worst case. I'm a staff nurse making $27 an hour. They also complain that the travel agency is taking a 40% cut is excessive. And we're going to be talking about the travel nurse, like what the travel agencies actually take when they're having nurses out there. We have all of that. We have data. It's going to be fun. If they're unwilling to live by the same rules as an agency, they have my full support. Show me the real numbers for Rick. We have real numbers. Hello, Caitlin. Hello, Michelle. I'm glad you can hear me and that you're here and you caught a live. Josh, everyone. Hello. Hi, Liz. All sound is good. Thank you. Kevin is a paramedic. If this is true, don't want to go to nursing school. I mean, I kind of feel you. Let me know how are we feeling about nursing schools? Anyone else in nursing school? I feel like this would be a very, very difficult time to be in nursing school. So kudos to you if you're in school, because this is just a hard time to enter the profession because a lot of people are just angry. Mama Nurse, this is my second live. Mama Nurse was incredibly helpful during my last live. Thank you, Mama Nurse. She had excellent advice. Her name is very appropriate. I was like, I do feel like you're just like my mother helping me here. And you notice the background change. Yes. One day it will be a cute YouTube backdrop, but right now it's not. And we have like, my hand looks fake. That's kind of fun. Looks like a dummy. I've never used a green screen for something like this. So I was like, you know, why not try 5 minutes before I actually have to go live? Why not try an entirely new thing? It's going to be great. Nicole is applying for nursing school right now. Good luck. And I hope everyone knows that's in the process of nursing school and thinking about it. Like, you know, you hear a lot of like really rough things about it. But like for the most part, before the craziness of the whole pandemic thing happened, like I really liked being a nurse. You know, like I for the most part liked it. I didn't like some of the schedule. There were things I didn't like. I've worked on a terrible unit and a great unit, and you know, it's not all bad. Right now is hard. So just know that like I think this is going to become in phases. I think there's a lot of things right now that are making a lot of like I'm hoping that it causes like ripples as we keep talking about this, and makes the environment like pleasant again so that we all can all like kind of enjoy, you know, enjoy this profession again because it's gotten kind of rough. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening to you. Rick is a recent grad who was in grab. It was interesting during the pandemic. I am very sure that it was. I cannot imagine going to school during that. I got to go to a NICU today in clinical. School can be stressful, but there's lots of fun. Just had my last day of maternity clinical, and I think I want to go into NICU nursing. Yes, do it. I did a interview with another Josh, who is a NICU nurse, and it's on my channel under it's called Health Career Assessments or something, and you can go watch that. And he has a ton of great advice. I'm traveling right now, just finished my FNP studying for boards. Can't do plain. The better pay versus higher education is an interesting conundrum. Yes, it is. Rick says babies. I have a couple of questions. Requests I have to take them. I plan to apply for nursing school. That's awesome. We're going to do a Q&A at the end. So if you want to leave your question, even if you have to bounce, we can come back and catch it later. Okay. So let's look at what we're talking about today. Again, thanks everyone for being here. I appreciate you. Here is our table of contents. Let's take this away. Okay. One day I'm going to learn how to live stream. It's going to be a great day. So as we were talking about, the state is capping travel nurses' pay. We're going to talk about what the situation is. What do the financials look like with actual numbers? What is the difference in pay between travel nurses and like nurses that are in a more of a traditional role? What does the proposed of Pennsylvania legislation say? Because my stupid state is trying to do this. What are the travel nurses saying? I bet you can guess. Are there alternative solutions? And then notes from an outsider. And then we'll have a final Q&A. And we'll check back in the chat throughout the entire thing. So feel free to comment whenever, and then we'll take little breaks and we can discuss. All right. Shall we start with the situation? I thought that sounded appropriately dramatic. So the situation, in case you have not seen, let me know if you've seen the situation on social media, or if you have absolutely no idea, you can let me know that too. Basically, what has happened is right now, a ton of hospitals do not have enough staff. So they are outsourcing a lot to travel nurses on contracts who are contracted out by, you kind of hook yourself up with a travel nurse company, and then they give you all these options. They're like, hey, you can go all over the place. You are paid a lot better as a travel nurse. You sign up for contracts. It used to be that travel nursing was kind of like hit or miss because they could pull you away from your contract. So like there was risk involved. So that's why you got paid a little bit more. But hospitals are relying on travel nurses right now. And because all their nurses are quitting because they're like, why would I work here if I can work somewhere like as a travel nurse and get paid so much more? And then it's creating a lot of, and you see on social media, just the part of it, like I'm annoyed about it. So first of all, like that's just, I'll come right out and say like, that's ridiculous. Why are they're wanting to cap pay of travel nurses because they're like, oh, you're making too much money. Which just doesn't make sense. Like the CEOs of the hospitals are making millions of dollars. Are we going to cap their pay? Are we going to cap the pay of insurance companies? No. So why on earth would you cap the pay of nurses? I feel like this is just incredibly tone deaf and like making people angry who are already really angry. Like, what are you thinking? We'll go into what they're thinking. I have a feeling that they're trying to say it's for a particular reason when it is not. I really think this is probably them getting pushback from the big healthcare companies, and they're lobbying against it so that they can stop paying so much money. So that's That's my conspiracy theory. I don't know how to look that up. If any of you are like legal people and know how to find out who's lobbying for what and doing all of this stuff, I would love to know. I have more of like the data on it, but I don't know how to figure out like who is funding this and lobbying for it. So if any of you are like legal humans and you want to help me out, that would be lovely. So that's the situation is they want to just say, hey, you are going to be capped out at this amount of money. Right now, it's kind of working like a free market because people are like, hey, I'm going to go, like they're having to pay travel nurses more because they don't have anyone. They're more desperate. But then there's this huge pay in like inequality between people who are in the hospital working and travel nurses. And so there's kind of like the two sides of it. There's travel nurses who are like, don't you dare. Why would you like you can't cap my pay? And then there's the other nurses who are like, why are you making so much money? And then there's the hospitals who are like, I don't want to pay all of this out. Let me see. Hello. I'm glad you're here for a live. So that's the situation. Autocorrect messed up my comment. I meant to say I have a couple of prereqs. Oh, good. I was like trying to read it. I was like, I don't know what that means, but maybe I'm just tired. That's exciting. Prereqs are the worst part, honestly, I thought, because they were so boring and I just could have cared less. Like, goodbye. Funny that Pennsylvania was having a strike crisis and they were paying $200 an hour to cover cover a week or two. Such a mess. Yes, indeed. I've seen it and I'm not happy about it. All right. Mama nurse is with me. There's no such thing as too much money when no one else wants a job. Exactly. Like maybe if you just treated people better, you wouldn't have to do this. Or maybe if you just paid people like the people you already had, you wouldn't have to worry about this. But what do we know? What do we know? Lucy agrees. Mama nurse agrees. Free market. This is American capitalism. Just what the hell are people thinking? Exactly. So this is exactly, I think this is like the most ironic part about this is like, this is literally capitalism doing its thing where, okay, there's more of a demand. So we're going to like compensate when there's more of a demand, you can get better compensation for it. And then they're trying to cap it. Although the CEOs and everyone running these healthcare institutions are certainly benefiting from that because they're at the top of that little capitalist mountain. So it's insane. Current experience, there are more travel nurses on the floor at this time versus a staff. Hence, they have not even a skeleton crew. What are they doing to retain core staff? And this is what the argument, this is what it ultimately comes down to, is it's not safe to have a unit that is filled with travel nurses. When I was a bedside nurse, we usually had 1 to 2 travel nurses, and they were filling holes that were caused by people out on maternity leave or like long-term disability. But there were 1 or 2, and there were 87 of us, us being like the people who were on the floor all the time. So it didn't matter if a few people floating through weren't sure how we did conscious sedation on our kids or what our procedure was for pulling chest tubes or what we did for X, Y, and Z. Like it didn't matter because there were a lot of other people who did, and you could kind of go in and help them. You knew where all the meds were. You knew where the stuff was. You knew the protocols and policies. It gets really dangerous when you don't. And so this whole thing, like, I feel like the problem is so many steps backwards from capping the pay, and capping the pay is really just going to make the people who are fixing the problem right now angry, when the real issue is why aren't hospitals paying their staff better and offering like giving nurses situations where they actually want to work. Make it so it's mandated ratios that are safe so that people, when they go to work, they feel like they are not risking their license in order to provide care. Give people lunch breaks. What a shocker. Like maybe if we mandated nice, safe ratios, we could offer people living work conditions and give them lunch breaks and they would stay. Give people retention bonuses. Just like that's where it all comes down to, is just being so much less greedy from the capitalistic perspective of, the hospitals are money-making machines, which then goes back even further. And it's like healthcare is a money-making industry in this country, and it's disgusting. I'll rein it in. Tangent over. Nicole said, I heard a bit about this, but what is the cap they're deciding on? They want to cap travel nurses' pay. So right now, as hospitals are more and more desperate to have staff, essentially, because they're so short staffed, they're having to pay travel nurses more and more to make them want to go to that assignment. And they want to cap it. The one unit floor below me, 5 travel nurses, 1 new grad, 1 charge nurse with 2 years of experience, and 34 patients at a PCU acuity. Oh my gosh, and like all this is going to do is it's going to harm people. It's going to burn the nurses out that are there, and it's going to kill the patients. I reside in Louisiana, and we have had a lot of travel nurses here, and I'm mad because they're making more. Absolutely not. We are here to do a job. The hospital needs to pay regular staff more. And this is the other, like, this is a huge thing too. It's just creating animosity. So travel nurses are mad because their pay is being capped. And then the nurses that are already on your floor are mad because why is so-and-so working next to me earning so much money when I'm doing the same job? Like that would feel infuriating and it makes you want to leave. And that's what's happening. They've like, everyone's then more people leave. Some people are still like feeling like obligated to stay. It's creating so much animosity among so many people. And it's like, if you just treated people decently, none of this would happen. If they cap travel nurses' pay, then we need to talk about capping doctors' pay as well. Let's see how far that gets. But for real. Yeah. And I think this would go into this goes into like a whole different tunnel of the AMA would protect them. And the AMA is actually largely funded. Like if you look at the physicians that push money into the AMA, it is largely specialty providers. Family medicine, this is just like a fun little tidbit. Family medicine physicians are actually much less in love with the AMA because family physicians get paid very little compared to like surgeons and all the other specialty people. This is my hair is a disaster look that we're just going to tuck everything up into. But I'm sure the AMA would fight that like no other because they too typically lobby with the hospitals because they are making bank on all of this. So I'm sure that's why I want to know who is funding all of this, because I feel like the AMA is right there along being like, yep, like we're going to need to cap all of this and keep this away. Nicole, have they said what the cap will be and how much? I don't know if they've come out with an exact number, just that they want the ability to do it. We're going to talk about states that already have a cap in place and that we have actual numbers on, and we'll cover that as soon as we get to that section. Just left shift here. I'm a float pool tech, was the only PCA patient care attendant, and the other tech got pulled to another unit, so she could be the only one there. Hiring is non-existent thing. They're just draining floats. See this? And there's like turn and burn. And yeah, that's like miserable, and I'm so sorry. We're having this problem here because the community we live in is a rural community. The current hospital has like 50 open positions for nurses right now. And this is a rough thing here because the rural hospitals are not going to be able to pay travel nurses $100 an hour. Plus, I mean, a lot of contracts are way more than $100 an hour. The rural hospitals are not going to be able to pay that because they have never made quite as much money. The rural hospitals are largely disproportionately seeing Medicare patients. And Medicare is a weird thing where hospitals make very little money on Medicare patients. Hospitals like people with private insurance because that's where they make the most money. And so it just all comes down to nasty money. And Medicare actually has a big part of this legislation, which we will look at because they are losing a lot of money in their long-term care facilities because of how much money the nurses are requiring pay-wise. We'll get there. Just graduated from nursing school and I'm scared to work right now. Everything is such a mess. It is. I promise. Some floors are still great. And I think when this is all over, it will get hopefully a little bit better. And I'm hoping things just improve overall, like we get breaks and lunches and stuff. My floor psych has floats. I harped about the high-risk dangerous psych as a specialty in a different animal. Sure enough, a float nurse had her face fractured by a patient. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that sounds just awful. Like you need such specialized, and you don't get trained a lot as a float nurse. Ours would get like a day so that we'd be like, that's the Pyxis. That's where we get this. Good luck. Like you're expected to just know what's going on. And in psych, that would just be a mess. And I feel like a bunch of nurses are taking jobs as floats or as travel nurses to units that they're not familiar with, but the money is tempting them to go. You know what I mean? So it's all just a mess. This is what happens when you let daddy government control everything. The government has no say whatsoever in the contracts made by employees and employers, but they want to be. The government would like to have control over that, and that's what this whole bill is about. Too many higher ups in a sandbox crying over spilled milk. No one thinks clearly and understanding that we all are human beings and went through hell during this pandemic. Loyalty is a past tense. Yes. JB says politics. I can't rein it in. I just can't. Let me see. Oh, thanks, Rick. That was encouraging to Sarah, who just graduated. You'll do great. Most people argue that because nursing is more women-based profession, that's why I have the audacity to mention capping. I mean, I'm sure that probably plays into it. Thinking people won't, fight back. I doubt they would probably, like, no other profession. I feel like the only other one that's highly female dominated like this is probably teaching. I wouldn't put it over on them to cap teachers' pay, but they pay teachers like crap anyway. So what are you going to cap there? But yeah, I wouldn't see them doing this in a more male field. They would never be able to do it to physicians. That would never fly. Getting ready to graduate in April, and I'm terrified too. Finally, to my immense relief, I got an offer outside the hospital to avoid the whole situation. That's awesome. Go you. Our hospital is struggling so much right now that our governor sent the National Guard to come help with non-patient positions. That is just bonkers. What state do you live in? Graduating in May, I just accepted a ICU position at Lehigh Valley Hospital in Allentown. Oh, one of my friends in nursing school ended up working at that hospital, and she had a great experience. I hope your experience is lovely as well. Our other medical professionals travel and get paid incredibly well too. But of course, let's just focus on nurses. It's true. I feel like everyone's just like kicking us when we're down, and no caps for CEOs though, or hospital board members. No. None of that. None of that. Brittany is in Oregon for the National Guard coming in. Okay. Are you ready for facts? So let's see if we've covered all of them. The situation, in order to deal with staffing issues in hospitals. So like we've said, they've been raising the pay. What is one of the big problems that we see when I'm going to take this comment away. There we go. So the basics of the situation. Things that are happening, like we had already talked about, we're having negative patient outcomes because of just the whole situation of having so many people that are traveling. This is kind of like what the people behind the capping legislation are thinking. So this is like the background from their perspective. We've already obviously talked about our perspective. This is what the people who are making this legislation, what they think. So they are saying, hey, having this many nurses that are traveling leads to negative patient outcomes because there's so many staff that's coming in. They don't know they aren't familiar with the floor, or maybe they're not even adequately who knows? I do not know. I'm not a travel nurse. I do not know what kind of things you have to prove to be able to say, I can totally go to that unit and work. But I could absolutely see people being like, you want to pay me how much? Oh yeah, I've definitely done that. And we run into a world of hurt when they're like, I've worked in labor and delivery, but I'm sure the pediatric ICU is the same. And then they're like, oh, darn it. So they're saying, hey, there's that. There's frustration from between, like we also talked about, someone had said that they work on the floor and they work at the hospital, and then there's this traveling person next to them and they get paid so much difference. Like there's a lot of animosity there. The other huge point that they're relying on and this is where the legislation is targeting, they're saying that this doesn't just affect hospitals. They are targeting the fact that this is impacting nursing homes and assisted living facilities the most. And this is where they're I feel like they always try to come in from an angle and get people on board with things. And they're like, look at the people in nursing homes. Think of grandma who's not getting care. And they're going to go at this angle because it is emotional. And it is going to get people being like, oh my gosh, you're right. This is their angle. I think I already kind of said, and I'll tell you again, I do not think this is the actual reason, but this is what they're going for. So they're saying, hey, it's really about the nursing homes, and we'll talk about why. There's the growing gap. Nursing floor nurses keep getting paid the same, but the gap, I feel like travel nurses, throughout this whole thing, they've just been getting paid more and more and more. And they've had like different, all sorts of people have been signing petitions currently, and they're trying to figure out how to stop it. So they've had, let me see, and they're signed by 200 supporters urges. They want to look into it to say, also, what, my brain's not working. How much is the travel agency taking? Like, is this corrupt on the level of the travel agency as well? The people who want to push this legislation certainly think so currently. And then they're like, hey, we have a solution to this. There's already 2 states that have implemented this. I'm sure it's working great. And this is where they got the idea. So Massachusetts has a cap on travel nurses' pay already instituted. This was pre-pandemic. They did raise the cap by 35% during the pandemic. So they had it and then they increased it. I don't know what the numbers are on that, but Minnesota, we do have numbers. Minnesota also pre-pandemic had a cap on the amount of money that travel nurses could make on their contracts. And for RNs, it was $58.08. So now, I mean, that's like, we're looking at double that easily everywhere in the country for regular hours, and $99 an hour for holiday pay. So I don't know. I should have looked up what the Minnesota wages are state-wise, like not traveling, but $58 an hour as a traveler now, you would get laughed out. Like no one would take that. And now Pennsylvania is creating a plan. Other ones are like thinking about it, but Pennsylvania is the only state right now that's building this legislation to make a concrete plan to try to cap nursing pay. Let's hop back here. I'm going to get water and see if there's opinions. Kelly said, honestly, they're here. The travelers give better care than the staff in the long-term care facilities. I mean, that would make sense to me. If you're getting paid that well, I guess you better work hard. First of all, no one should share what they're making. Unprofessional, and definitely cause animosity and more anguish. This is interesting. I don't necessarily agree. I feel like it's good. I like to know what other people make, but I'm nosy. And if you're in a specialty, you have to take a test or 2 to pass them. Okay, good. You do an online assessment. Okay, so that's helpful. Hopefully they all do that. And that's if you are moving, like trying to get a job where you're traveling. Liberty said, hello, Spring said, I just saw the title. Is this for real? Yet CEO salaries are in the hundreds of millions and no pay cap on that. Isn't that interesting? Interesting. The National Guard, a lot of people are saying it's coming. Okay, so that's what we are looking at situation-wise. You need to have about a year to go into travel nursing. People at nursing homes can get their own families to help. Nursing homes are paid by Medicaid, so it's a free service families sometimes take advantage of. And we're going to talk about that. The Medicaid thing really plays heavily into this. And they're, I would imagine, a huge people lobbying to cap the pay. So if you aren't familiar, Medicare, Medicaid, they're kind of like, they're both bundled into like CMS. You can get some nursing home services and long-term care if you qualify for those at the end of like whether you need it because you are just needing like more assistance or you do need long-term care. If you financially qualify for that, it is through CMS, it's through Medicaid, Medicare, and there's a capped fee. So Medicare is very like set, and it's very stingy with their money. In hospitals or in primary care, they kind of set the fee for what they're paying for, but they have a lot of rules that like, oh, if if anyone gets a pressure ulcer while you're with them, all of a sudden Medicaid doesn't have to pay anything for the entire hospital visit. I don't know if it's like if that's like it is outpatient, like in a long-term care facility, but long-term care facilities do not get paid well when their primary clientele are funded by Medicare and Medicaid, because the private insurance tend to pay out a lot more money. So they have a lot less money to work with, which is why they are saying, hey, we can't afford to pay you more, like if we're having a bunch of travelers. However, since they are also the ones, like, they're the ones pushing the legislation, but they also like can also just pay more because they're the government. So they have more money. You know what I mean? Like they just have to pull it from other areas, which is what they're going to argue. But it's just a hot mess. But that's why they're arguing that traditional women's jobs are finally getting paid they deserve and everyone freaks out. Yes, that is a point that a lot of people are making that I hadn't really put together somehow, shockingly. And you are absolutely right. I know I teased about too much politics, but now I'm wondering who lobbies for nurses. We do a terrible job lobbying for nurses. The American Nursing Association lobbies for nurses, but there is so little funding because you're basically nurses typically are fighting against healthcare systems, insurance companies, the American Medical Association. All of those are typically against the interests of nursing. So there's just not a lot and if you look at like who has more money, who is like nursing just does not have that much money. We don't have these crazy rich organizations to throw at something to go and lobby for it. So it's just a complete mess. Hi, Ricky. I'm a travel nurse. This is Sharon. I would be willing to make less if staff nurses made more. So underpaid in May. I think it's probably saying Maine. Oh, that's really nice. She would make less if the money would go to staff nurses instead of hospitals' pockets. That's very nice, Sharon. I wish we had more people like you in the world. That would make my sister very happy. She's very worried about everyone, like the discrepancy in pay, and we'll talk about that at the end. Dang, I thought I was making bank at $42 an hour PRN at my hospital. Look at the travel nurse contracts. All of your travel nurse friends are out there making crazy bank. Kelly, it won't matter. Tons of favoritism too at the hospital. Let's see what Kelly said. But you should know what other people make so everyone could be treated fairly. Oh, we're talking about like pay. Guess I'm just very private and to myself. And that's totally fine. Guys, I know some people like to talk about money and some people don't. I like to know so that I can know, like, I'm really bad at negotiating. So I like knowing so that I can be like, you got what? Oh, okay. So I can know. But I mean, it's very much like I found people are either very open to talking about how much they make or very much like, no, go away. I got offered $133 an hour to travel to a local hospital. I'm about to graduate as a DNP. I'm going to choke. Hold on. Yeah. I mean, I would go too if someone wanted to pay me $133 an hour. That's a fairly like $60 to $75 an hour as an NP is pretty good. But it's certainly not 133. I would like that too. This is why people go travel, because who doesn't want $133 an hour? Even after taxes, even if they take half, you're still sitting at more than your take home would be as an NP. You have less responsibility, less chaos. It's insane. Let's see. Yeah, Mama Nurse. Mama Nurse. Remember, everyone's listening to Mama Nurse because she gives great advice. She says, do it. I say, do it. Go do it. Go for it, Holly. Your NP job will be there when you get back. And Medicaid is so picky with everything. Yes, they are. They're very nitpicky. In primary care, they would send from our perspective, they wouldn't pay us necessarily our office visits if we hadn't charted that we asked them about their colonoscopy this one time. They'd be like, oh, well, you didn't do this. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with the fact that they have pneumonia. And they were like, I'm sure it does. So that's who we're dealing with. Everyone should share what they make only by knowing what others make. If you're being taken advantage of. That's kind of what I think. But I mean, like I said, you're entitled to your own opinion about that. Does anyone know the California nursing ratios? I know they're nice. I don't know what they are. Capping pay will worsen the shortage. Travelers will not go to states where there's a cap. I hope this legislation dies. I do too. Ridiculous. It's about money, not grandma. I agree. I see you in Bethlehem, PA. Hi. I agree. This summed it up very well. ANA apparently does or should. Yeah, that's who does our advocating, and they just don't have nearly enough money to do anything actually helpful. I think California has mandated staffing ratios. They do. And they get breaks. Sounds kind of nice. To be honest, I was like, well, yes, Medicaid can increase their budget. Congress prints all the money they need for the budget. So they just have to move some over from their lock Raytheon Pentagon budget. Exactly. So that's exactly what they have been doing, is pulling the money from somewhere else. And they don't want to do that anymore. So we end up with, they were like, well, we could pay all of our friends. Like, our friends are getting paid less, but who can we maybe take the money from instead? Nurses. Don't worry, John. I'm going to protect your department. I found the nurses. We'll screw them over instead. It'll be totally fine. That's what's happening here. Institutions don't want you to share how much you get paid due to high demands in the hospital that are not unionized. Yes, my hospital was unionized, and still they somehow wanted you to keep hush hush about when you make how much you made, even though it was like on the internet. It was odd. I like to know also the way I can fight harder for myself if needed. Exactly. I'm like, let's all gang up on them and know. I'm still in the beginning of nursing school. So what do I know? But the patient care side of medicine seems extremely underpaid as a whole, from CNAs to MD residents. Oh, it is a CNAs, guys, CNAs, MAs, LPNs, they are ridiculously underpaid, like ridiculously underpaid. And residents is a joke. Like, residency is also, fun fact, funded by Medicare and Medicaid. So, but do you think the AMA is lobbying with? See, they're certainly not lobbying against Medicaid, because that's how they're in bed with them. So they shoot themselves in the foot. And then it's this whole system of like, well, residents get paid, like, I mean, if you look at it, like $4 an hour or something stupid. And then a lot of the times they'll take out that animosity on nurses, and they'll say like, well, we did this and we got paid so much less and blah, blah, blah. Like, it doesn't have to be a this or that conversation. It can be like, nurses need to make, because they'll say, oh, nurses don't need to make more money. Look at how much money we make. And it's like, just because you get paid like crap doesn't mean I shouldn't make more money. We should both make more money. This isn't a this or that situation. Like, please be aware of the enemy, and it is not each other. It is the situation. It's the hospital. So, a little tangent on that. Medicaid is, that whole institution that needs help. California has mandated overtime pay after 8 hours of what? Mandated overtime pay after 8 hours of each shift. So 8 hours is regular pay and 4 hours is overtime. Everyone go work in California. CNA should get paid a bonus $100 per poop cleanup. But for real, I cannot express, CNAs, it blows my mind how little CNAs get paid. Why has nursing as a profession not become unionized? Do you think the situation will push more and lead to a nursing union? I hope so. I only ever worked in a union hospital, and it was awesome. Well worth whatever my $50 monthly dues were to them, because they fought for everything for us, and it was wonderful. I do not know why on earth we don't have more of that. Okay, section 2. What do the finances look like? Let's find out. According to Shawnee Brucey, I have notes. I don't know how to pronounce any of these names. Wrote an article on nurses.org saying that travel nurse pay has never been higher. I think we all know that, but that was my fact. I was like, I'm going to back this up with something other than my opinion. And here it is. I found this not very verifiable source, but it's something. Okay. But I think we all know that travel nurse pay has never been higher, and good for them. We have in August 2021, just for a comparison, weekly average rates were over $2.5 thousand a week for a travel nurse, compared to December 2019. So December 2019 is pre-pandemic. The rate was about $1,000 for a travel nurse. August 21, $2.5 thousand a week. Indeed.com is showing rates. The 2021 national average nursing salary for travel nurses was $108,000 compared to $75,000, which was the national average for nurses. So that kind of gives you your what, like $30,000 less doing the same job as a regular like nurse at a hospital versus a travel nurse. And you have to factor in that travel nurses typically work a lot less. So in that same amount of time, you have the two, like you're working a lot less as a traveler. Usually people will take months off. It's like, oh, perfect. This is great. And so same amount, a lot less money for a lot less time. Travel nurse pay is going to obviously vary based on where you're working, including like nursing pay. Like I know in California, you're never going to make $75,000. You're going to walk in making 100. And in a lot of areas where you're traveling, you're going to make a lot more. So that all varies, but that's a national average because in some states, nurses get paid like crap, like absolute crap. I think the average in like Tennessee was like $20 an hour when I looked it up one time, and I was like, $20 an hour. I made 31, I think, when I started in Michigan. And that was in 11, maybe, I don't remember. But $20 an hour, no, thank you. It is important to note when you're going through like and looking all of this. Again, this is kind of like what the people who are writing this legislation are saying. They're saying that hospitals can't keep up with this. And then the rebuttal to that is like, but then how are you able to pay it? Like if you're able to pay these travel nurses all of this money, then why on earth would you, like, where did this money not come from? Because you keep saying you can't pay nurses more. You can't make sure we have safe staffing. You can't do X, Y, and Z. But then all of a sudden Susie comes in and you're paying her like $200 an hour. How exactly does that work? So even though they're saying, oh, it's not sustainable, your actions are not supporting that, my dear friend. So they're running into that problem. Someone from Pennsylvania, obviously trying to defend, he's in support of this. Timothy R. Bonner, Pennsylvania representative, noted in November 5th, 2021, when he was trying to get all of this pushed forward, he said nursing homes in Pennsylvania lost 18% of their workforce and 68% of the state's facilities struggled to meet minimum state staffing requirements. And to him, I would say, I don't think this is new. I think they are, again, using grandma to push this through. We all know that nursing homes have been chronically understaffed because their pay is crappy. And they, especially the ones that are run by Medicare and Medicaid and funded through them, have been functioning on a skeleton crew for years. So I'm not sure why all of a sudden they care. Oh, it's because their money is at stake. So now they all of a sudden care about grandma. It's also interesting that they come at it from this angle. Most of the nurses who are traveling, so like it doesn't even make sense because most of the nurses that are traveling are registered nurses. Some LPNs are definitely traveling, but the majority of the nurses are registered nurses. The majority of the nurses that are working in long-term care facilities, we have a lot of LPNs that work in long-term care facilities. And like we'll have like a few RNs and many LPNs. So the bill that they're trying to say like, oh, you have to cap travel nursing pay, which is mostly registered nurses, because we're losing staff. We don't have enough staff, but it's like, that's not the staff you're losing, friend. Like you don't have staff because you won't pay them. It has nothing about them. Like your staff is not the one that's leaving to go travel. So this is apples and oranges here, my friend, but they're not going to talk about it. They're going to make this sound like we care about your grandma. We're going to have to pay you less. So we have them. That's what they're trying to push. That's how they're framing it. Since these long-term care facilities, about 70% of them in Pennsylvania are funded through Medicare. So they are having to pull the money, like a lot of you said, they're pulling the money from other government funds because Medicare, since it's part of the government, they are able to say, hey, oops, we ran out of money here, reach an arm out and grab it from John over here, maybe in the Pentagon, maybe pulling it from other areas where they would prefer to not pull it from. Staffing agencies insist that they are, then they come back and they say that to the staffing agencies. Another thing that the legislation is annoyed about is they say these staffing agencies are making a ton of money. The staffing agencies are saying we're not making a bunch of money, which is also a bunch of BS. I mean, that's what they do. That's, that's their business. They're allowed to make money. I think it's funny that the legislation is like, well, you can't make any more money when they're funded by the hospitals who are making buckets of money. Um, the staffing agencies are claiming that they're not making like more than they used to, even though the rate of travel nurse pay has jumped like 67%. But they're saying that their costs have stayed the same. They make usually like an additional 28 to 32%. So the way it works is the hospital pays the nurse a certain rate, and then they pay the travel agency, not the travel agency, the travel nurse agency, another like whatever percentage of the fee that covers their costs. And they're saying like the nursing pay has jumped, but the fee has not. So that's their argument, just in case you were wondering. Let me see. So that's our situation. Again, that's how they're trying to blame grandma. And that's some of the numbers, and hopefully gives you like a background of like everything that is happening. Kelly, $15 for an hour for CNA at my hospital, but travelers, you get 26. Oh yeah. No, I'd be like, okay, bye. Jesus, $10 an hour for 2017 in Iowa. Oh my gosh. No. It's because we're all healthcare heroes. We're just expected to be in healthcare because it's our passion. I have so many feelings about this. So many feelings. I hate healthcare heroes. I hate when people say nursing is a calling. It's a job. It's a job, and we deserve to be paid for our job. It's stop morally manipulating us. That's what we talked about a lot on our last live, so we won't go into it too much. But Abby, I agree. More demand equals higher pay. Isn't that what you wanted healthcare to be for profit and a capitalism thing? So why are you mad now that capitalism is running the nursing world? It's got to go both ways, friends. Also, there's inflation. Yes. So I think inflation was playing into it a little bit, but I was a CNA between nursing school and passing the NCLEX. I made 70% of RN pay as an CNA. Oh, so that's pretty good. Usually like, that's a lot. If you made 70% of what you made as a registered nurse as a CNA, that's pretty good. The nursing pay in the South is bad overall. Yes, it's very, very sad. Tennessee is on the low end pay for overall anyway. I mean, it has to be. That's just like so ridiculous. Cap CEO pay, not nurses. We should make should be our little flag. Be like, yes. I was going to say nursing homes have been understaffed for years. Yeah, like this is not a new issue. They've just never cared about it before. Suddenly they need to care about grandma because it's going to push their point. Nursing homes in my area pay more than the hospital, but they're private. I mean, hey, sweet. That's good. I'm glad they do. I feel like nursing homes typically underpay people, and then they attract like they're so desperate to hold on to people that sometimes the people that work there are just like, like obviously not everyone. There's so many wonderful people that work in long-term care, but a lot of them, they know that they can't get fired necessarily, if you want to go with that. And I've just heard horror stories. Let me see. There is only a shortage of nurses who will put up with the low pay and the crap. Exactly. And amen. Nobody has a calling to wipe a butt and get ridiculed while they're doing it. Yeah, just no. I seen yesterday that they would possibly start allowing nurses to be their own contractors who are working for hospitals. I wonder if that would squash the cap talk. Oh my gosh, that would be awesome. Just start your own like LLC and go contract yourself out. Please do. Not everyone is on travel is banking the way people assume, especially if you're not ICU, med surg, ER, or pediatrics. So this is an interesting point of view too, that like not all contracts are crazy, like making crazy money. I would assume that people in those situations would be less invested in this whole thing because like if you're not on the high end of it, then your pay is not going to get capped. They're looking at the people who are in those specialties that are making hundreds of dollars an hour. That's what they're trying to cap. Jackie said, does it matter if you have an MSN or an ADN for travel nursing? Nope, not at all. What matters is your experience from before. Mama nurse, she's coming through for me again. No, it does not matter. Yes. No, for travel nursing, you just need to have experience in the area. And it sounds like there's like a test that they give you to make sure you are competent. this. Pay me badly or treat me badly. You cannot do both. And that's what hospitals are learning. They're learning, I think hospitals for a long time thought that people would stay, because they're like, oh, this is stable. You have, since we have to get healthcare through our jobs, I think a lot of them were like, oh, this is stable. We'll give you your health insurance. We'll give you all of these other things to add on to it. And people are just like, no, like that's not enough. Hang on, my light went out. Nope, it's done. It's out forever. I'll blame Joe. I'll be like, Joe, did you somehow... Oh, it's back. I can't blame Joe. It was my own error. I didn't actually plug it in. It was running on batteries. All right, we're back. But yes, I think they called, who is it when they call a bluff? And they were like, oh, no one will quit. And then everyone quit. They were like, oh, dang. My bad. And then rather than now, hospitals being like, I'm so sorry. Like, you're right. You called our bluff. Please come back. We'll give you more money. They're digging their heels in. And this is the situation that has happened. So let's take a brief moment and talk about why is there a huge difference in pay between travel nurses and nurses that are like working for the hospital. I keep wanting to say floor nurses, but like that's not what it is. It's not floor nurses. We have many reasons. Some of them we already covered. We have a figure. Here's our figure. So here is what travel nurses typically can be making. Okay. So travel nurses tend to get paid more. They're going to be given, their base wage, whatever, for a week or for a month. They're going to get a housing stipend. They're going to get monthly meal stipends. They're going to get mileage stipends. They're going to get a continuing education stipend and a sign-on bonus. So why are they getting all of this when nurses who work at the hospital are getting none of this? The biggest thing, so, this is the argument that, again, I'm trying to present the argument for the legislation, why they're coming at it from it. They're trying to say this isn't fair. Why are they getting all of this when you other poor nurses are not getting any of this working at the hospital? You might get continuing education pay, but you're certainly not getting paid for your housing, for your supplies, for your stethoscope, for your scrubs, for your car. Like, you're not getting any of that. This is really unfair to you. So not only is it mean to grandma that this is happening, but it's mean to you too. This is how they're coming in. They don't care that it's mean to you. Again, they care that they're having to pull money away from other Medicaid. Like, Medicaid is pulling money away from other things and they're tired of it. But no, it's all about you and grandma. Here's why travel nurses get paid more in reality. Like, so this is my rebuttal. Travel nurses get paid more because you're going into like an unknown area. Usually the areas you're going into, especially recently, are like crisis. So the environment's not going to be like great. You're not walking into a unit and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're here. Like, this is a great place to work. We're short because everyone is just so happy that they went and made babies and everyone's having babies. And that's why we're short. No, it's because the hospital made everyone mad. So they left and ran away. So it's not happy reasons. You're not walking into a happy floor. You're walking into a floor that is in a bit of crisis. You might be working in, with less than ideal conditions. You might be working with, in the middle of a pandemic, especially in the middle of a pandemic, where, you might be wearing a trash bag as PPE. So it's like a risk. You are in more demand because obviously the hospital needs you. Again, we have our supply and demand thing going here. You need me more than I need you. So you're going to have to pay me more money. You're paying for the specialty of being able to just plug and play a nurse. That's a huge thing. You aren't going to have to pay. The hospital doesn't have to pay to usually train them very much. All of these things are why, and it's just convenient. Like, you have the convenience of literally, it's like ordering a nurse online and then having them show up. Plug and play. You aren't paying their benefits. You aren't paying all this other stuff. So that is why typically travel nurses get paid more. And again, this is a situation where the nurses who work at the hospital say, but I'm doing those exact same things. I should be paid more too. And the I feel like this legislation is trying to pit people just like like other things tried to pit residents against nurses. This doesn't need to be a this or that. This can be both. This could be, hey, you shouldn't cap our pay and you should also pay nurses at hospitals more. We both should just be able to make what we deserve. Like it doesn't have to be you pitting us against each other, because when you pit us against each other, we're just divided and we're fighting each other instead of fighting the actual enemy, which is these giant healthcare systems. So don't let them pit you against each other. These are like, they're trying to make you fight. Don't fight. Congress literally legally prints all the money they need by deficit spending so they can print out what they need, limited by inflation, only limited by inflation consequences. Yeah. And then they get, they don't want to prove that they're, they don't want to show that they're having to do this. So that's why they're trying to stop it. My friend makes $3,900 a week traveling. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do that? 80 to 85%. Oh, that's even higher. So Pennsylvania is like 70, did we say, percent of Texas nursing home residents are dependent on Medicaid or Medicare for their care. And so that's why I'm assuming Texas would probably have, a similar legislation trying to go through, because they're going to have to be pulling that money from somewhere. Travel nurses have to duplicate expenses. Exactly. So like, it's just more expensive. Like, why wouldn't you, it makes sense. It makes sense to me that you would have to pay travel nurses more. They're having to find somewhere to live. You don't live there. Like, like you are having to pay for your home at home, your rent where you live normally, as well as your home away from home while you're traveling. So like, duh. You're having to pay. It just doesn't make sense. But they're trying to pit you against each other. I have been underpaid and mistreated as a staff nurse, charge nurse, and nurse manager. I will take travel pay. Travel pay at this point, stay out of the work drama and give my best to the patients. Yes, there's also drama. Exactly. So you can avoid a lot of that. And then Michaela makes a good point. Michaela makes a point. Money doesn't matter to me. All I want to do is make a livable wage. See, that's very noble. I thought you were saying money is all that matters to me. And I was going to be like, I get it. Like, not that money is all that matters to me, but like at the end of the day, don't tell me like, I don't want you to tell me I'm a valued employee. I want you to just pay me really well so I can go do fun things and buy weird stuff that tickles my fancy after I scroll through and find it on TikTok. So, Michaela, you are a more noble human than I. I just want them to pay me more money. I will save this live. They all get saved. Let me see. And there will be, again, timestamps in case you want to skip through. I try to present the content at the beginning of the section and then I ramble so that if people are like, I just want the content bit, they can skip to the next part of the timestamp and skip over the rambles. That's why I kind of like say my bit and then we chat so that people, if they're not into all the rambles, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't be into the rambles, but I've heard some people sometimes aren't, so that's fine. What does the proposed Pennsylvania legislation actually say? Let us dive into this and take a look at what they're already saying. I've kind of already explained where they're coming from, but let's take a look at like what they're actually saying. Let's see if we can take this. Perfect. There we go. The legislation in Pennsylvania, so it hasn't been like formally introduced. So the way a bill works is it's going to get either introduced in the Senate or the House. And then, they vote on it. And if it gets passed, it goes to the next one. It's just sitting there. They're writing it. It's 8 million things long. They have to phrase it in ways that sound nice and then sneak the things that they actually want into it. So they're on the forefront. They're obviously saying, save grandma and you nurses should hate each other, not hate us. And then in the middle of, and then on the back end, they're going to, pull all the other strings and be like, why are these women making all of this money? This simply will not do. The legislation in Pennsylvania hasn't been formally introduced. But here are the things that we already know that it will have. It will require healthcare service agencies who provide temporary employment, so travel nurse agencies in nursing homes, assisted living residencies, and personal care homes to register with the Department of Human Services. So basically, they're saying if you have people who are going to be travel nurses that could work in a long-term care facility, you need to let us know. You need to come and say, hey, I might be putting people into these situations. They will then establish max rates on agency healthcare personnel. So if that agency is working with any long-term care facility, they're going to cap their pay. So what is this going to do? It's going to make the healthcare agencies that are supplying the nurses to these places, they're just going to say, that's fine. I won't offer any services to these long-term care facilities, because if I do, I have to register and I have to tell you, and then I'm going to have to cap your pay. And if it passes like across the board where all of the pay is capped, they're just going to say, I'm not going to work in your state. And then what are we going to do? Then that is going to be a world of hurt. The legislation will allow state agency oversight of supplemental healthcare service agencies, which they don't currently have. So basically, the government's going to be able to go in and say, tell the travel nurse agencies how they should run, essentially. And that's going to include everything from registration requirements. So what do the nurses need to do in order to register to be on this travel agency? In like a reporting system. So like, how are they tracking hours? How are they tracking what they make? And penalties. I don't know what penalties means, but I don't like it. I don't like that they will be able to give penalties for what, if you're like in non-compliance or what. The person who is writing this bill said, Representative Bronner, the gentleman from before who was trying to tell us that this is really for grandma, not for us, recognizing the increased role that these agencies play in the day-to-day operations of nearly 700 nursing homes and 1,200 assisted living residencies and personal care homes, we must ensure that they are operating in a manner that supports the long-term care sector and high-quality resident care. So as you can see, Representative Bonner is really just pulling on that and being like, even though this literally does not affect anyone that works in long-term care, because those nurses are not working, we're not pulling them out of long-term care. That's not where they're coming from. We're going to lean on this because, again, they're funded largely by Medicaid in this state specifically and most states, and they are tired of having to pay more. Because when the Medicare run facility runs out of money and says, okay, the only nurses, we need to pay our employees more because they're all leaving. They're sick of doing that. But in reality, that's their argument. And in reality, this is not actually a problem that is happening. This is not happening because most travel nurses are not going to long-term care facilities. So their entire argument stands on absolutely nothing. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Everything is fine. Where is the legislation giving 12 paid leave weeks of maternity leave to all women in jobs, including part-time jobs? You're asking for a lot. This is simply, it's America. We don't have that. They are pulling money from end of year bonuses for the executives. We all know this exactly. So all those people like who magically are not getting all this money at the end of the year. Deep breaths. This is All the Lives Are Saved. This will be the MP Reacts playlist. Yes. So I started a new playlist for all of these where I do reactions to like other videos as well as hot topics, I suppose, that are coming up in the healthcare world. I'm trying it out and seeing if people are interested in it, and they're all saved in a playlist. NP Reacts. Haley says, I live for your rambles because you open my eyes to new ideas and perspective I wouldn't otherwise consider, for example, vaccine mandates. I love that. And this is why I like having these live, because you guys show me different perspectives. And at the end of this, we'll talk about my sister's different perspective, which like I said, like it doesn't mean you have to change your mind about how you think of something, but I think it's so important to hear two sides of what is happening. It's just good to hear because I can acknowledge that, like, I understand where she's coming from. She has a valid point. It doesn't change the fact that I feel like this law is garbage. But I can see, instead of it just being like a different side and me thinking like people who think that this is great are stupid, I can think, okay, I don't personally agree, but I can see where they're coming from, and it makes people more human, and we're able to talk and discuss and hopefully reach conclusions together. Um, how can a hospital be non for profit when the CEO is making millions? Serious question here. I used to know the answer to that, and I will try to find it again. I forget what they have to be able to do to say they're not for profit. Um, but I will find out. We can do a live for that and talk about it. What not for profit actually means, but I forget. It has something to do with like tax and how you file, and it has nothing to do with the fact that you can make a ton of money, essentially. Because all the non for profit hospitals make millions of dollars. Um, it's sad in nursing that they will add on tasks and duties and not raise the pay, make cuts to certain positions and benefits that help you to do your job and expect you to ride out to the sunset for them. It's true. And I feel like a lot of people until the pandemic really felt like they would ride out into the sunset, as a, you know, at my nursing jobs, I definitely did, part of my when I first started, I was like, oh, like I bought into the whole, like, this is a calling and this is like, I'm doing this for the betterment of the people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm doing this, like, this is a giving profession. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, oh, wait, that was like manipulation. Like, you were manipulating the fact that most nurses are giving people who like people and want to give and want to care. That's, tends to be the type of people that go into nursing, and you're just manipulating that. And I'm not going to run into the sunset for you anymore. And Rick, I appreciate you giving this perspective. If you're watching this as a nursing student, I just want to say I love being a nurse. There are moments of joy on most of my shifts. I just wish I had time to appreciate those moments. And I appreciate you saying that, because again, I do have a ton. I liked my nursing job. I did not work as a nurse during the pandemic. I worked as a nurse practitioner, and I have thoughts on that. But I really remember a lot of my nursing job fondly. I left the bedside primarily because of the schedule. I didn't want to work nights. I didn't want to work weekends, and I wanted to be in charge a little bit more. I wanted to just move into something different, but there were a lot of things I really liked about it, and I hope we can get back there. And I really think we will, because I think a lot of people are fed up, and we need fed up people in order to make change. So hang in there. All they are causing is an even greater divide between the professionals that has already existed for years. Exactly. They're pitting us against each other, nurses against nurses. It's going to cause a deeper sense of resentment than there already is, because there already was. Like, I feel like there's always been a little bit of a weirdness between nurses who travel and who are on the floor. And this is just, they're going to pit us against each other, so we fight each other and not them, which is not what we need to do. Let's do a women's march in the state capitol. Tell me what to put on my banners. Let's do it. I just need to wait till my children are a little bit older. I can't leave them to go to the Capitol with you. Actually, the Capitol's, I forgot I don't live in North Carolina anymore. I'll go to your Women's March Capitol. Let's work. Someone organize it. I don't have time, but someone do that for me and we'll go. Abby says, they give us more money from the government. It's not that hard. But they want to keep their money. Abby, they would like to keep it. Don't you know? This is going to cause an even deeper recession in the long run, because no one's going to want to work in healthcare. And the ones that suffer in place is the patient. Yes, I agree. I think this is going to cause it's just going to be very eye-opening where all of this ends up in a few years, just in terms of healthcare in general. Because you're right, a lot of people are leaving. I don't want to work at the bedside right now either. So I'm exactly one of those people who I was just like, hey, this is not healthy for me. And a lot of people are also in that same boat. I think one day we'll go back, maybe, or maybe not. And so where are we going to end up when everyone leaves? It's going to be interesting. Add legislation that all the owners of the nursing homes must get a CNA license and work themselves in their own facility for 1 week per year. That's very interesting. I really like that. No one would run them. I could not. Why don't we? This is something that I don't understand. Why don't we have nurses more in leadership positions, in the hospital, and not the nurses that are so removed that they're like, hey, 50 years ago, I was a nurse, working on the floor. And then since then I've been in management. Why don't we have nurses and doctors who are actively involved in patient care, helping run these things. Like, it doesn't make any sense. People are so out of touch that are there. Could you imagine a nursing home or a long-term care facility run by CNAs and nurses? That would be flawless. Like, that would be the most, it would just be, it would be so well run. Like, ugh. But no, we have this stupid hierarchy where they would be like, "Oh no, you need to go and you have to get your MBA to run this." You CNA, come on, deep breaths, deep breaths. There's such a hierarchy. There's just such a hierarchy of stupid educational hierarchy where they're, if you don't have the degree, you can't do the thing, and they just treat you like you know nothing. And it's just stupid. I like to hear positive experience. Thanks, Rick. Yes, thank you, Rick. We appreciate you giving your positive experience. Just curious, why does nursing get more benefits compared to other departments? Because there's an educational hierarchy, and they like to just poop on people who, it goes like down. So doctors are probably going to get the most money, and then like nurses, respiratory therapists, people sitting in there with this, and then they do not care about people, and that's why. And it's stupid because there are so many talented people who know so much that work in hospitals, and they are just underpaid, and it is a disaster. Hi, I love your videos. Thank you. Currently a nursing student with 2 semesters left, was planning to travel one day, but now I'm upset and terrified by the possible pay caps. Just wait and see. I mean, it depends on what area you're going to go into. I think you're still going to be able to make bank, and just don't travel to the states that are stupidly capping the pay. I think there's going to be a lot of states that don't end up doing it. Just don't travel to those states. I mean, I'm not telling you not to be nervous. That's you feel you, but I don't think that this is not going to be a unanimous thing. Some states are going to do it, and then those states are going to run out of nurses because everyone's going to be like, bye. I'm going to need you when I finish nursing school. I have to learn how to navigate this BS. I'm here. We all get tired. We're all equally important in healthcare. I just find it a little unfair. Almost every department is understaffed. I agree. It's a mess. They're going to need to deal with it. Yeah, for positivity, I absolutely loved being a nurse. This is year 8. Yay, Mama Nurse. Thank you. We need more positivity like that. JCO is non-for-profit. That's all we need to say is JCO is non-for-profit. Oh, JCO. Also in bed with JCO gets all their roles from Medicaid. So are we seeing who the evil person in the room is, friends? Who is underneath all of this is Medicare and Medicaid. I wouldn't be surprised if the hospitals are lobbying for this to save money. Oh, they are. They are. Like I said, I need to figure out how to prove who's lobbying what. I think the people lobbying for this legislation are the hospitals. I wouldn't be shocked if, like we said, the AMA is somehow in this because they like to back things that go with the hospitals because those two are in bed with each other. And then CMS and Medicaid. That's the big push against this. Everyone, please hit the like button. Great content. Well, thanks. I agree with this comment. Do that. Chris, stay on track if you want. It's worth it. No, it's just a job, like you said. It is. But I mean, it's a job, but it's also a lot of your life. So it's hard to leave my staff job because I like my coworkers. I get that. And the hospital is close to home, decent nurse to patient ratio. I would make 4 times as a travel nurse, but would have to drive an hour plus, but kids. And this, I think, is a huge thing. A lot of hospitals keep people, like the hospital that I worked at before, I would not have left because it was close to my house. Water. They had great benefits, and they've actually had a lot less people leave because they had excellent benefits. They paid people well. There were things that they could have done a lot better, but in general, they were great to work for, and they have seen a lot less people leave. When I talk to people who still work there, they're like, yeah, we are not seeing the mass exodus that the other hospitals are because they have bonuses to staying there. They give you bonuses. They have like bonuses if you've been there, like throughout the year. So if you give people retention bonuses, treat them well and give them excellent benefits, there you go. Also depends on your life situation. If you have kids, if you want to be close to home, if you are comfortable, there is something so nice about being comfortable on a unit. This is why I would never be able to travel. I would never be able to do float pool because I like my people. I like to know who all my people are, have my comfy, cozy people, have my work wife, have everything set up the way I like it. I don't like change. If you've been following me on my Instagram, you know that I am a train wreck when I move, and we just moved. I don't like change. I like my environment to stay stable, and that is worth its weight in gold to me. Like, I would not make more money to go and travel because that sounds like hell on my soul. If you are not that person, obviously it makes more sense to travel, but this is a good example of like why people would stay at their jobs, but then your hospital can kind of manipulate you. They want to cap travel nurses' salaries, but not mandate higher pay for staff nurses, nor are they considering capping pay for the higher ups at the hospital or paying higher executive positions. Exactly. And again, with this, the only thing I would point out is they are trying to create this wedge between nurses, and it doesn't have to be a this or that. It can be we both should be able to make more money. The ones with the MBA keep piling more crap to staff nurses. Exactly. But kids and yeah, you want to be able to be close and have something stable if you have kids, in terms of a job. I am making life-changing money as a travel nurse. I'm never going back to staff nursing. I have a PRN job that I only go to when they are giving me incentive pay. And I think a lot of people are like you. I think a lot of people are making life-changing money, which is awesome. And then GW said, good for you. I wish I could, but I have kids, which does change the entire thing. Hashirama, if you want to say what company, Sam would love that. Why not safe staffing ratios? Because it would cost the hospital money. So they're going to lobby against that. They're going to tie that into some other stupid bill where they're going to be able to say, like this is why we shouldn't have this legislation. Because don't remember when like the whole nurses play cards thing came out where they were like, they're just playing cards. That's how they view it. Like all of a sudden they suddenly don't care. Whatever they are going to lobby for is like their opinion is going to change. They're going to say different things to just fit their narrative. So that's why they don't want safe staffing ratios, because it's going to hurt the hospital's bottom line. So they're not going to be that. Pay a nurse instead of a lobbyist. What a concept. What a concept. I don't fully understand what lobbyists are, except for I know they're the devil, and they're paid by the devil. But I'm going to try to figure that out. And I'm doing like a whole like healthcare deep dive series on like how we are, where we are. And we'll do one on the politics of it, of like what lobbyists are, who funds what, why the AMA is evil. All of that good stuff, all my opinions. You could maybe look at the donation companies are contributing to legislatures who are pushing for it. Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, I need to remember that. You maybe look at who is donating. I'm trying to learn how to do research, friends. This is not like, I know how to do like healthcare research. I don't know how to do like internet sleuthing on legal documents to find out who is funding what. Almost a new grad. Travel nurse is literally my plan for paying off loans. That's a great idea. I would be happy to stay long-term at a hospital if I knew what didn't know what nurses who have been there for 15 years made. Yeah. And it all depends on your hospital. Like I said, mine paid you very well. By the time you had been at the hospital, I want to say 10 years, you were getting 6 weeks of vacation. You were making about $100,000 a year. You were, and this was starting, I think I started at like 60,000. So like it gave you a pretty good ramp up. If you treat people well, they will stay, but they don't want to do that. Thankfully travel with my children. I'm trying to never go back to staff nursing. This works for my family. It works not made for others. That's awesome. I love that you bring them with you. Do you travel like locally or all over? Lobbyists are worthless, just like politicians. Amen. Amen. We need more nursing healthcare people in general in the government, by the way. If any of you want to go into like policy and politics, every now and then, like that's always been a tickle in the back of my mind is like, do I want to go do that? Maybe, but I want to wait till my kids are older because I don't want that to like I wouldn't want to be like away from them. But once they're gone, I feel like we might have to release Angry Liz on the world fighting for healthcare justice. Oh, watch out. Everyone vote for me. Less than a year left in nursing school. Travel nursing is the only thing that motivating me to finish. It's really my retirement place. 2 to 3 years of staff, 5 to 7 consistent travel years, then retirement crisis only. I mean, that sounds like a solid plan, really. Like, travel nursing, I feel like is a great way to not burn out, because when you're making that much bank and you can like take a bunch of time off and go do other fun things, that sounds great. I remember when I started as a CNA, I was a floor nurse in a nursing home and I had 28 residents to myself. Shockingly, They didn't care back then, did they? Now they care. Now they care that you had to deal with that, but they didn't care back then. What a mess. Catherine, get your experience at the local hospital and then get your bag before the babies come. Make your money and split. More nurses will leave the field. I agree. They think it's a shortage now. Just wait. I agree. As a nursing student, this makes me upset. If the system is going to be capitalistic, let it be 100%, not just for CEOs. This right here. This, if you want to operate in a supply and demand type of world where you can make all the money, then you also need to let your employees take advantage of the same system. But somehow they don't do it that way. How do you travel with kids? I have 2 kids and I can't even imagine. She's going to share our wisdom. Mama Nurse is amazing. She has all the knowledge. Oh, wow. Those are awesome benefits. What hospital was that? I don't know. I technically, I don't think can say, but it was, just go back and look at my videos. You can tell I wear a lot of shirts from them. It's in Michigan. It's a big one in Michigan. It's associated with a college. Their colors are blue and yellow. It was a good place to work. Still deciding on how to study for nursing after getting my bachelor's in something else. Your videos have been very helpful, and I just want to say thank you much. Oh, Lana, you're welcome. Release Angry Liz. Gotta just keep her in the boat for like gotta cap her for a little bit longer before we release her. The world, but Sam's banner slogan: Release Angry Liz. That'll be it. That'll be my slogan: Release Angry Liz. Oh my goodness, this is awesome. Ashley said, Sam, I'm a nursing student. This is exactly my plan to like make money and then bounce. Still deciding on how to study nursing after getting my bachelor's in something else. Oh, I'm just reading that one again, obviously, because it was a compliment to me, obviously, but really, thank you. I travel all over. We minimize what we travel with, homeschool our children. The oldest is 5 and my spouse travels with. He works from home. We try to stay in one location for a maximum of a year. How cool though. Like they just get to see like all over and all sorts of stuff. And they're going to be so flexible. That's going to be awesome. I love that you're doing that and just like going for it. I cannot imagine, but maybe it would make one of my children is a little bit more stressed in new situations, but maybe that would help her. So I love that. Go you. I think all of us nursing students without kids have the same plan for school. Get it and bounce. Being a nursing student without kids, you're making the bank. Can you imagine being like a travel nurse married to another travel nurse and you don't have kids? Just feel like making a boat on your money. What would you even do? Right now where I work, they have a $5 incentive pay for the next 12 weeks. It's a start, but they have a long way to go. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to insult them because, but at the same time, I'm like, $5? 5? 50? 5? Come on. But it is a start. So we don't want to insult people. They're trying. Lena accelerated BM path as the shows. It's pretty intense. You can do it. I did an accelerated nursing program. If I can do it, you can do it because I am not a great student. You can do it. Just take it one day at a time. Don't look at the whole semester, just one day at a time. That's how you're going to get through an accelerated program. That'll be over before you know it. You're not going to have fun during it. Your life kind of sucks, but then it's over. It's short. Oldest baby boomers are 76 and 5 more years when they're over 80. A wave of long-term care of needs is coming. Yeah, that's gonna, yeah. I have been on the fence between PA versus NP. Let's just say PA school is money. I have a pre-med bachelor's degree. I've been thinking about getting an ASN first. Thoughts. I have a whole video that I can leave linked in the description about PA versus NP. If you have no prior healthcare experience, I would encourage you to go to PA school. Nursing NP school is, or if you know exactly what you want to do, you could maybe consider NP school. Like if you know you want to do primary care, all of your education will be geared towards primary care. If you do not have any healthcare experience though, PA school is a much more well-rounded. NP school is going through something. I'm sure I want to talk about it, but I also don't want to like talk poorly about my profession. But a lot of NP education is a joke. And it's a struggle. And I don't think it would prepare you well if you don't have healthcare experience and you want to pop out feeling prepared. Um, I had 6 years of nursing experience before I graduated from NP school, and, like, I knew where to find the information that I needed, but I can't have imagined going into it without that background. Um, and my school was fairly rigorous in that it required, like, 300 hours more than the minimum. Um, and it was in person, so, like, I had lots of hands-on things, so it just go watch that video, and then you can always message me on Instagram if you have questions, but I would encourage you to go to look at PA school. Um, Awesome, I'm a nurse. If my husband could work from home, that would be awesome. Enjoy that money. Do enjoy that money. Get it. I'm planning on doing travel nursing because when I'm done to pay off my BSN, I have kids. It's going to be interesting. That's a great way to pay off your. I know that the Natalie, she's a peds NP. I can't remember her Instagram handle. That's what she did. She traveled to pay off her student loans. She got to go like all sorts of cool places. Make sure that they don't have that. They don't tax that $5 if you place in Texas separately tax incentive hourly instead of having the rates increased. Oh my gosh, what a mess. Me and my husband were ICU nurses and we traveled for a couple of years before kids. We worked the same shift and same days. It was amazing. I hope you got all the money and bought really fun random things. As a mirror RN, I think the PA path is more science-based. I mean, you're never a mere RN, but the PA path is much more well-rounded and much more standardized. Natalie PNP, thank you. That's yes. The PA path is much more robust. It's very standardized. It gives you so many more clinical hours. NP school is bowing to the money and they're like trying to make it as easy as possible for people to get through. It seems like not all of them at all, not all of them, but like I constantly get ads for like get through NP school in like 16 months, all online, no campus days. I'm like, oh, that's a weird, like, that's not how you want to market your healthcare education. Like, I would not want to, if I was a patient, that's not the type of provider I would want to see. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So just look into that just a little bit. All right. I think we're ready for our next segment. Is it this? What are the travel nurses saying? It is. Yes, it's this. What are the travel nurses saying? I think you can guess. They're not happy. Why would they be happy? They're most assuredly not happy. Some people are saying that they would strike if this legislation went through. Others said that there's no need to strike. That's just a waste of energy. They just won't take those contracts in those states. It's totally fine. You keep your lower pay and I'll just go somewhere else. Because that's how supply and demand works. Other nurses said that putting a cap on the pay would potentially put both patients and healthcare facilities in danger because if we have another surge, we're just like need more nurses. Who's going to fill that job? What are they going to do? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. A nurse was interviewed and she said if they try to cap RN pay, what will happen if there's another COVID surge? Let's say they cap our rate at 5,000. If there's a surge, they will most likely not get as many nurses. So better tread lightly. Otherwise, they will have bigger problems on their hands, even severe than a severe nursing shortage. And that pretty much, I think, sums it up. There was a petition that was going around. I'm sure if you're on social media, you might have seen it. It was a change.org petition making rounds that was a response letter to Congress trying to make this stop. I did look at the link, but it doesn't work anymore. So either the petition got taken down or it was just the wrong URL. But it was saying that this was going to make everything just even worse by forcing nurses away from the work site. It was going to, it wasn't protecting the rights and the safety of the patients and the staff. And they should really just be introducing competitive minimal pay requirements for all nursing rather than just like being punitive, just helping everybody get into a better situation in general. Let me see. I'm in an accelerated nursing program right now. It'll be done in May. Seriously, time flew by. Now I get to stress about entering the craziness of healthcare. But friend, if you did an accelerated nursing program that was 1 year, mine was 18 months, and I can't imagine it being shorter. During a pandemic, you can do anything. You're going to be fine. Go get the travel nurse money and do it. Liberty, thanks for being here. I appreciate all your insights. I feel like we're on the same vibe. Please come back and validate my feelings whenever you would like and share them. I appreciate you. Got to run. Thanks for bringing this topic to a live discussion so we can all vent anytime. I'm all about free therapy because who can afford real therapy? Night Nurse says, new grad RN based in our area, Central Cali, is 42 an hour plus differentials. Med surg ratio is 1-5. Our travel nurses earn 4 times more. 4 times more. So what, like, I'm not going to try to do math and embarrass myself on the internet. 160. Wow. That's a lot of money. 1 year. I know 1 year for an accelerated nursing program. I don't know how you do that. My brain like almost melted out of my skull during 18 months. The stress is real. You will be forged in hot fire when you graduate, but you'll emerge strong and fierce. Rick, I like you. I like your tenacity. Cali is so expensive to live in. Yeah. I grew up in California. There was no way. There was no way I could go back there. I grew up in Southern California, and the house that we just built would buy me, I don't even think, an apartment, like apartment sized house. Like it wouldn't, I can't. I don't know how you all do that. Good for you if you live there. PAs seem to be more MDDO's puppy. I feel like NPs have more autonomy. Maybe my shadowing experiences weren't that great. I think your shadowing experiences probably were not that great. I would say they have the same level of autonomy. It just depends on the practice. Some practices are, some practices are in a way that they don't respect the the advanced practice provider that works with them, and some do. And that's what it really comes down to. If your practice supports you and respects your role, you're going to be able to have a lot of autonomy and a lot of freedom to roam in that role. If you have less, if you have someone that doesn't respect your role, you're going to feel like you are a puppy following them around. But in an environment that you would want to work in, I would say PAs and NPs have similar autonomy from what I have seen in general. Some states allow nurse practitioners to be autonomous, but that really comes down to, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to open your own practice? Because if you don't want to open your own practice, when I was like, I'm a nurse practitioner and I never felt limited. You know what I mean? Like, I did not have autonomous practice. Technically, I worked, I had a collaborating physician, but I didn't feel like they were like deciding everything for me. And I've worked with PAs who felt the same way. So it all comes down to, who all you are working for, if you know what I mean. So definitely consider that. I have been working in factories my whole life, just finished my STNA, starting work towards my BSN. Any advice? Just take it one day at a time. Do what feels right next. Don't do anything that ever feels sketchy or like you're going to lose your license. And even when everyone is telling you like, this is how it's done, it doesn't matter how it's done. Just do what feels right for you. So if you want to quit your job, if you want to go work on this other unit, if you want to, whatever feels right for you is what you should do. Nursing, there's a lot of voices in it. There's a lot of opinions. And it's okay to just embrace that, like, this is your job and not your identity. Don't let it become your identity, would be my advice. Keep it as a resource that's going to like keep you paid and something that you enjoy and that you can like learn more in and give you something like for your brain to, mull over and go and do. But do not let nursing like consume your life. Let it be your job, because that's what it is. And just do the thing that feels the right next. Liberty, you're my fave. If you thumbs up the video, really dope. If you thumbs up the video, YouTube shares it more. The more you interact with it, the more they share it. They like that. So do that. I guess it's all about hierarchy. It is. Healthcare is all about hierarchy. They really like hierarchy. People at top really like making the people at the bottom feel like crap. AA said, I've been searching for a new grad position and feel a certain way when I see the rate starting at $26 in places like South Florida. Hard to know what a good rate is for sure. $26 an hour is not a good rate for a new grad position, especially during this pandemic. My PA during cancer treatment was amazing. Go PA. Yeah, I've worked with a ton of great PAs. DW, exactly. The pay there is great, but the cost of living is exceptionally high in California. That it is. Pay in Florida sucks all the time because it's a destination state. That's my home. I got out because the pay is so bad. Yeah, that's not enough money for what you're doing. The college I chose for RN to BSN requires a mentor facility for last class called a capstone. create a quality improvement initiative, but during a pandemic can be virtual. But yeah, that sounds rough. I hate those quality improvement projects. I'm sorry. Do it and just forget it and be done. Just do the dumb busy work. I'm so, busting my butt in a 1-year accelerated program. I cry every day. It's so stressful. I'm going to be so mad if this legislation passes. I have my eyes set on traveling and providing for my family. Travel nursing will always be there. The insane prices, even if they get capped, you're still going to make bank. But like I said, just work in a state that just don't take contracts in that state. You can do it. I cried so many days during my accelerated BSM program. Your family is going to be so proud of you, and you are setting such a good example for like everyone else when they're looking at you. So just know that. Focus on that and know this won't last forever. I cried all the time in my accelerated nursing program because it's just insane. You don't have time to do fun things. You don't have time to de-stress. It's miserable, but it's not forever. So just remember that. It's not forever. That's what I want to remind myself. This is not forever. South Florida has really high cost of living. I would have expected higher. I was going to make a snarky comment about Florida, but I'm going to rein it in. Oh, thanks, Mama Nurse. Great advice. Thanks. I always say at the moment you start nursing school, people start giving you their opinions and every move you make to what works for you, and just smile at those opinions. It's very nice. Mama Nurse will smile and I will roll my eyes. Pick which one. She's like the good angel and I'm like the demon on your shoulder with all the advice. Let me see. Okay. So let us move on to we're almost getting there, guys. If you have to leave. Wow. I have been chatting a lot. Okay. I apologize if you don't. Well, I guess if you're here, you probably don't mind the chatting. So thanks for being here. I like doing these lives. Are there alternative solutions? Are there alternative solutions? Yes. That's why I included this part of the slides. It would be awkward if I was like, no, moving on. There are no other options. The petition that was mentioned previously that all these people on change.org signed did bring up some good points. Hospitals or healthcare facilities and the government should be forced on creating, they should be focused. Remember how we talked in the beginning about taking 12 steps back? We should really be focusing on creating safe working environments and safe environments for patients through safe nursing ratios and paying people well. You know what I mean? Like treating people well in the beginning so they don't leave and they don't feel like their only option to make more money and advance is by traveling. This is a bigger problem that can be fixed with even fixing the wage gap. Even if we did make more money, it's a lot of nurses feeling undervalued in terms of different people suggesting federal solutions. These are some things that have been thrown around. Not in terms of a federal wage cap, but a systemic change on how the pandemic and federal resources are being handled. Making some hospitals more accountable for how they are stewarding their funds, how they are allocating them, doing things like saying, hey, when you say you are non-for-profit, you are really going to have to show us that you're not making a $14 million salary. You can't get the tax benefits of being non-for-profit if you don't do if you are obviously for profit, and just being a little bit more astute about that. But again, that would require a lot of lobbying and laws passed, and they're certainly not going to do that because they're the ones paying for the lobbying. Things like the American Hospital Association has asked the Federal Trade Commission to investigate staffing agencies, though the FTC won't confirm or deny these actions. So that's them saying, that, we should really look at the staffing agencies. Maybe it's their fault when in reality, it's not the staffing agencies. The staffing agencies are taking advantage of a situation so that that's what staffing agencies are just doing their job. So they keep trying to make them out to be the devil, but the hospitals are the devil and Medicare and Medicaid are the devil. In case you can't tell from my opinions. Hi, Sophia. Was nursing harder? Was bedside nursing harder or nursing school? For me, bedside nursing was harder at my first job. At my second job, nursing school was definitely harder. Because I loved my second job. I worked with kids. We had a much better ratios. My first job was really terrible. And I cried every day. I have a whole video about like my first 6 months. If you are a new nurse, being a new nurse is just really brutal no matter what, because it's just such a learning curve because our nursing education system is such a hot mess and we don't prepare nurses well. Um, but it's a whole different tangent for a whole different day. I think that it depends on the type of human you are. I was the type of student where I was like, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to do the thing. I'm not going to get an A. So, like Liz, student Liz knew I'm not going to get an A. So, I'm not going to stress about this. Like, we're going to aim for a solid B minus, maybe. And when we get it, we're going to be thrilled. So, like, school for me was stressful and it was hard, but I was not the type of student who was like so stressed, like, oh my gosh, I have to get an A, because student self recognized that she was just not, it was never going to happen. No matter what I did. So for me, nursing was harder because this was like life or death. People were, very dependent on me, and I couldn't be like, I'm going to give B quality care. I was like, I need to like keep these people alive. So for me, nursing was harder in the beginning. And then once I got the hang of it, it was fine. So it just depends on the type of human you are. If you are someone who is much more neurotic about school, I'll say, and like really needs that, nursing school is really hard because the questions are just insane the way they're worded. So like sometimes you just can't win no matter how hard. I mean, certainly try, but like it can be really hard. Whereas then like when you transition into your job, you're like, oh, this is just like, I just can do tasks. You know what I mean? So it just depends on the type of brain that you have, and everyone, you get used to everything. So it'll all even out. You'll be totally fine. You can do hard things. Remember that. And if you can be a nurse, if you got through nursing school, you'll be fine. You can do it. Let me see. Do we say hi, Amber? Oh, I lost my way. Let's go back. Oh, look, Michaela said, I can do hard things. Yes, you can do hard things. That is my mantra, my internal mantra. So whichever one is hard, if school is hard, they're both hard. This is, again, one of those situations where it doesn't have to be either or. Being a new nurse and being in nursing school are both hard. That's so disheartening. I love the work, but the conditions are the pay. Erin, you're hilarious. Why, thank you. Someone tell my family. They just think I'm odd. Depends on what you consider hard. They're both challenging in their own way. I agree. The one nice thing about work is you're done. When you're done, you're done. You can turn off, you can watch Netflix. When you're in school, there's always something else to do. Our hospital asked its employees to donate to a new MRI machine. What? No. No. RN for 99 days. Bedside nursing is harder because it's literally lives at stake, but nursing school is still a nightmare. Exactly. So like Rick said, they can both be hard. You are doing an amazing job if you do any of it. The only thing that gets done at a federal level is politicians making money. Isn't that the freaking truth? Bees get degrees. Yeah, I still had a 4.0. Overachiever fail. I mean, good for you. The world needs people like that. That was just not in my soul. And you still became a star nurse. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate you thinking I'm a star nurse. But yeah, this might be an unpopular opinion. I think out of all the nurses that I trained, and I trained many, the people who were not straight A students actually did better because they were used to failing sometimes. It was the nursing students that came out that were flawless nursing students. Everything they got straight A's on everything. They came out and into the nursing world and like where things are not perfect and where, I mean, you're going to fail as a new nurse. You're going to make mistakes. Things are not going to go well initially because you're learning an entirely new career. They had a really hard time. Whereas me, I'm like, I failed a lot of things in my life. Like, oh, whoops, like I got that wrong and I was corrected in public. Like, okay, it's like the 5 millionth time that's happened to me in my life versus like Amanda, who has never been publicly corrected in her entire existence because she's straight A's. Like they had a really hard time, no matter how kindly you like said, hey, that's actually not right. I found that they had a harder time adjusting to it. So that's a little encouragement for you if you're like a bees get you by type of human. And if you're a person who's a perfectionist, to just understand that like you I like that. Try that again. If you're a perfectionist, just understand that like it's okay if you're not perfect during this. You know what I mean? Give yourself the grace to know that no one expects you to be perfect. That would be really creepy and weird if you popped out of nursing school a flawless nurse. Okay. We would think you're a spy or something weird is going on. So it's okay. And you're going to be fine. You're going to make it. I'm a Florida native and pay really doesn't mess the cost of living at all. I was a new grad MA and I was making $12 an hour. No. Nurse Liz, I love kids and always wanted to work with them, but now I'm not so sure. Do you have an aha moment where you just knew where you wanted to be? I just always wanted to work with kids. I just knew that. I worked with adults when I first graduated because I just needed to get into the hospital door so I could switch units. I just always knew I wanted to work with kids. I wanted to be a teacher before that. I wanted to be a pediatrician. I just like them. I like the littles. Ironically, I wanted nothing to do with children in primary. Like I knew I wanted to go to primary care. And I didn't want to do that in pediatrics because I did not want to handle the parents in pediatrics outpatient who were going to be like, Johnny coughed 12 times today. I'm going to bring him in. I'll be like, no, just no. But I think, and the cool thing about nursing is you can just try it out. If you're like, hey, I want to work with kids, go try it. And then if it doesn't work out, then you can just switch to a different unit and you've gained a cool new bucket of skills that you get to take with you. What are your thoughts about student nursing apprenticeship programs during an ABSN? Sounds really hardcore. I worked during my ABSN because I didn't want to be homeless. I'm sure my parents wouldn't have let me be homeless, but I did need to pay rent. And it was brutal. So if you can avoid working during your accelerated nursing program or like taking on more responsibilities, I would maybe do that and not do it. But I mean, you're going to learn a lot, but that's just going to be a lot. Again, JB saying, try that again. I like that as a correction. That's a really good one. Like try that again. And this time do this. That's a really nice and gentle way of saying something. I used to tell people when I usually gave feedback where I was telling them that they did something wrong. First of all, I would tell them like at the beginning that, hey, we're going to do this. I expect you to make mistakes. I would tell them the thing. It's freaky if you don't make mistakes. So I will be offering you correction. Is there a way you prefer to receive constructive feedback? And then if they said like, don't say this, then I would obviously like tailor it to them. And if they had no opinion, I would always say something that they did well. And then say something like, and in this area, like next time, try this, like, this is why the thing that you did probably wouldn't work out in the long run. And then, say, but I also saw you doing well with this. So compliment sandwich, after asking them what kind of feedback they preferred. Because some people really just want direct. They don't want you to give them your compliment sandwich. They want you to be like, hey, Daryl, don't do that again. You did this wrong. Do it this way. And other people are like, hey, Timothy, I saw you go in there and that was really brave and you did a great job. Next time, please don't give the oral med through the IV, but I really liked how creative it was. That's not a great example, but you know what I mean? Like that's how we were working with. Then Catherine said, I'm going to be the best new nurse ever. Yes, you are. You are. Can I just say a small side tangent. I do not know how people go to nursing school with social media because everyone on social media has a 4.0 and that is so stressful. Like, friend, you are going to be just fine if you do not have a 4.0. You're also going to be fine if you have a 4.0, but like, do not feel like everyone has a 4.0 because my GPA, no, it didn't have a 4 in it. It definitely didn't have a 4 in the front. You're going to be fine. Just got into my top BSN school a month ago. Congratulations. And I'm starting in the fall. I'm just worried it's going to be a huge shock compared to what I'm doing in high school right now. Take it one day at a time. College, no matter what, is very different. One day at a time, use a planner, and just tackle it one day at a time and stay on top of things. Don't procrastinate because it can really pile up since people aren't like on top of you as much. I was ridiculously happy and ready to throw a party when I walked away with a C in my nursing classes because I knew I am not the most studious when it comes to my schoolwork. Yeah. I mean, you just got to do what you need, get in there, get out. It's going to be fine. If you didn't like being a CNA, do you think it would be similar when you become a nurse? I feel like as the CNA, you'd be able to see a lot of the nursing roles and see like, is that for you? There's many different types of nursing. But if you like hated all of healthcare, I would maybe make a pivot. But usually as a CNA, you can like get a pretty good idea of what the nurses are doing. Type A tends to stress the most on the floor. They also stress me out when they're charge nurse. Type A people when they are charge nurse, that is a rough day. I was probably too laid back as a charge nurse. So you need somewhere in the middle of me and type A. Because I was just like, we're all just gonna get through. Everything's gonna be fine. Like, oh, you're getting an admission, but like, I don't want to delegate and stress you out. So I'm gonna set the whole thing up and like do the whole admission, even though I am charged. And I also have a whole assignment. It's gonna be fine. I'm drowning. Everything's fine. Something in the middle. What do you think about nurse residency programs in general? They're fine. Some of them are helpful, most of them aren't. Your unit's going to train you anyway, and if they're not going to train you, you don't want to work there. I applied to like a ton of nurse residency programs and I didn't get into any of them, so I'm probably just salty about it, but I don't think they're like live or die. If you get into one and you think it'll be cool, cool. If it's going to help you get into a unit you want to work on, awesome. If you don't get into one, you're going to be fine. I think it's the best thing I've done in school so far is get an internship. It's been so helpful. Internships are awesome. Internships are different because they pair you with a nurse and you essentially do the nurse's job with them. You get to do like everything. And a lot of the times it leads to a job. And if nothing else, it leads to awesome experience. DW said, Haley, my nurse residency program was a waste of time. I'm sure some are better though. Exactly. Most that I've heard of are a waste. Some are really helpful. So just, either way, you're going to be fine though. So I don't want you to like stress a ton over it because in 2 years, it won't matter. As someone was a CNA, that was how we knew we wanted to be a nurse. But if you don't like being a CNA, then I don't think you like being a nurse because you have more responsibility then. Let me see. Rick said, Haley, I'm in a residency program now. I spent daylight hours today doing mock codes with zero pressure. Huge thumbs up. So that's a great experience. So yeah, just depends on the one. I'd rather someone be honest with me than sugarcoat the problem. I've had enough people lie to me in my life and I don't need that in my job. Exactly. So I think it's a huge, huge, huge important thing to just ask someone how they like their feedback. Some people are going to want this kindness sandwich and other people are just going to want straight to the point. Hi, Julia. What do you think about the international nurse join specifically? I do not know enough I don't know anything about international nurses and I am sorry. I'm pretty much Nurse's husband. Oh, MSCE BSN nurse today for some reason. Rick, you've been very helpful in this live. Thank you. Let me see. Okay, good. I think we're caught up. Oh, I didn't like being a CNA in a hospital, but I'm excited to try a non-floor nurse position someday. Liz, I really like your interviewing series, different types of NPs. Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah. I think the type of unit you work on as a nurse or a CNA is very dependent on what your experience is going to be like. And I've started doing a whole interviewing series where I'm interviewing different healthcare people. So if you would like to be on that, you can email me I'll type it in here, nurselesyoutube@gmail.com. If you would like to be interviewed on my interviewing thing, it can be anyone in healthcare, whatever you do. That's totally fine. I'm just trying to since you can't shadow anymore, I thought it would be fun to interview people and see what they do, what their job is like, since it's so hard to shadow. Okay. Let us see from a different perspective. Here we are. 7 notes from an outsider. Notes from an outsider. I like how ominous that sounds. This is an altering view. So you obviously know my view. I think this is stupid, that they shouldn't have a ban on it, that we should also improve conditions for all nurses. And that we should, if you want to have it in a capitalist system, you need to just let it do its thing and you can't go in and intervene. And if you do, you should be capping the people at the top. Okay. Why are we doing this? So that's my opinion. This is opinion of someone else, because I do always want to try to show the two different thoughts behind something. So it's never just I'm always going to give you my narrative because I'm highly opinionated, but I would like to make it not just an echo chamber of my thoughts. And I think it's good to just see different sides. So I'm just going to mostly read this and then we can briefly discuss, and then I will probably go because it's past my bedtime. So this is from someone who does not work in healthcare, but is very familiar with the healthcare system and has family that it's my sister. I've already outed her, I think. I work in healthcare. Obviously, my mom works in healthcare, and this is her perspective as an outside person who is very, very caring and like worried. Okay. So I asked her for her opinion, because I thought she might have a different one than me. And she said it's complicated. Yes. Travel nurses deserve to be compensated for their skills fairly. They should be compensated for their time and putting themselves at risk, but it's not just about individuals. The economy has to be able to sustain payments, and this is a system across federal lines and and states. On one hand, go travel nurses, make more money, you do what's best for you, but at some point, the benefit of one or a few can no longer come before the benefit of the masses. Hospitals and long-term care facilities and even Medicaid can't afford to keep paying travel nurses this much because these facilities still have to or choose to, in the case of larger institutions, pay their higher positioned administrators the big bucks. That's not going to change just because they're also paying travel nurses more. So basically, you like people who are lobbying and getting paid giant money, they're still going to get paid giant money. For them, it's first and foremost a business, which is true. Healthcare in this country is a business, if a for-profit business. If they can pay travel nurses more, they will continue to pay staff nurses less, putting them into a dangerous situation or even have them walk out. And we already know that they care more about profit than filling nursing roles, since they bragged about 2021 being a good year for revenue, which everyone did. Hospitals had a great year in the pandemic. Travel nurses are falling for the fancy and well-paid lure of a temporary patch on the long-term systemic problem that's going to lead to far more harm than good. Travel nursing was a thing before the pandemic, and there will still be a need after, and there should be an incentive for it, but within reason. Patient outcomes are going to be plummet if the only people working for them are the burnt out nurses, new nurses, and travel nurses, the latter of the two who need training and don't know how the specific floor runs. Instead of going for more money and thinking singularly, she would recommend advocating for change. If you want a safer environment, if you want fair pay, if you want a better healthcare system, you have to advocate and work for it. Don't encourage other people into a job that makes nursing more dangerous. So yes, take advantage of the current pay, but also fight for what you want from the ground up. So kind of like do both, don't just take the money and run, is this person's opinion. Fair pay for staff nurses focuses on retention, training, and safety. Fight for people to be paid more to work in safer conditions. This is going to look like breaking down the current system. How can you ask administration to be less greedy when people are taking the same, making more money, while demanding safer, while the work conditions are getting less safe for the people you're leaving behind. You don't owe healthcare anything. You don't owe your job anything. You don't owe other people anything. But it would be a better world if we thought of other people and trying to reduce the hustle and just make things more safe and happy for everyone. Providing for everybody, looking out for everybody. So that was just an outsider's perspective. Of more going at it from more of a holistic view. That's kind of where other people are coming from, in case you hear pushback, is people saying this is just creating more of an issue. I obviously fall more on that's not my problem, this is a job. But the public's perception of it, and this is that's why I thought this perspective was so interesting. The public's perspective of it is a much more you need to have this be bigger than yourself, and you need to think of other people, which kind of falls back to healthcare heroes, and all of that in my mind. That's what that brings up for me. But that's kind of the balancing act. And I mean, I think she has a lot of valid points that yes, this is just putting a Band-Aid on it. And the more we do take travel contract, people do take travel contracts. It is in a way magnifying the problem, but at the same time, that's the system we're in. So I just wanted to include that so we could see a different perspective, because I found it interesting. She's outside of healthcare, so she doesn't have the same visceral gut reactions of it's obviously very personal to me and a very big pain point when people use like healthcare heroes and um, nursing is a calling. We've talked about that. Like that really, it strikes me the wrong way. She doesn't have that background because that's not her history. So I thought it was a good thing to kind of include and just show like that's what other people are thinking, just to get us out of our own little echo chamber. I agree, Mama Nurse. She has valid points. And I think a good example of just saying, like, I feel like it always helps me to understand where other people are coming from so I can have a civil discussion with them rather than just name calling, which always gets us nowhere. And that was my gut reaction was when I saw this, I was like, you stupid idiots. Like, why would you even propose that? And this helps me wrap my mind a little bit more around it and be like, okay, I can see how a good human can understand this and kind of go. I agree. Let the healthcare system shake itself out. Yeah, let it just do its thing and it's going to let it figure it out. It'll be fine. My top two BSN schools are 32,000 and 23,000 a year, and more expensive one is a higher level school. Do you think it's worth it to go to a better school but pay quite a bit more for it? Just ask around in your area about the reputation of the school, because not really. Like, people will tell you if you ask in like healthcare circles what schools are good in your area, and they'll be honest. So I would say, like, I think actually community colleges spit out the most prepared nurses. It can just be harder to get a job sometimes if you have your ADN versus a BSN. Yours are both BSN schools. So just ask around and people will say, there were schools in my area before that, like, no, if you asked, yes, they were, some of the more expensive schools didn't prepare you as well, and people would happily tell you. But also, one of the cheaper schools spit out nurses that no one really wanted to work with. So just ask in your area, and nurses really do not hold back. So just ask. Bogdan, go to the cheapest one. No one will care, and it'll save you money. And I mean, at the end of the day, yes, if you aren't worried about like how prepared you are, your hospital doesn't care. They care that you have RN after your name, and some care that you have BSN on there as well. Good perspective from cis politicians need to implement universal health systems like other countries like France, like every other like first world country. I agree. Why can't we figure it out? Why has everyone else figured it out, but we can't? I think we can do it. We can do hard things, America. We can do hard things. I'm working in a nursing home and making more money than hospitals have to offer, but I'm obsessed to having an experience in the hospital. What do you think? Go for it. I mean, maybe wait until like the chaos calms down, but like I have said before, do the next thing that feels right. You can always change your mind and be like, actually, never mind. I'm going to go do the other thing again. Just go backwards. It's fine. Just try it, because you can always pivot. You can always change your mind. It's one of the top private schools for healthcare in the Midwest, and they have links with the top hospitals in the Midwest. I mean, if they're going to get you networking opportunities, that's worth a good chunk. I'm not a networking human, so my schools had networking opportunities, and I was like, I mean, I didn't go to like a top fancy school, but either way, you're going to be fine. If having less loans is always awesome, so I would look into that. I'm not sure. That's why I'm still deciding. Yeah, take your time with deciding. It was beautifully stated. The opposing side, we'll call her that. She's a very eloquent writer. I want to get into lobbying one day for the right cause and group, not for the hospitals. Problem is the legislation is not addressing those underlying problems. Exactly. So they are literally cherry picking issues that they know will present well to the public, which is look at the poor nurses who survived this pandemic. They're getting paid less than travel nurses, and that's not fair. And don't you want your grandma to have good care? Those are the 2 points that they're using to draw people in, but that is not what the actual bill is about. The bill is about they do not want to have to keep pulling federal funds and funneling them through Medicare to pay travel nurses a ton of money. That's what it's actually about, but that sounds bad. So they're going with grandma and nurses against each other. Thoughts on Capella? I got my RN to BSN in literally a month. Just worried if they have a good image. It's FlexPath and self-paced. For RN to BSN, it does not matter. I'll be honest. No one. All that matters is that you have the BSN after your name. Um, so go for it. Like, I have different thoughts about the NP side of things with Capella. Um, and like I think Capella has an online RN, which I don't understand how that works. But for your RN to BSN, friends, go wherever is the cheapest, because it is the BSN. It is such fluff classes. You are not gaining anything. You're getting a little bit about like policy, and you're learning more about research and like community health. But it is fluff. It does not really impact your job whatsoever as a nurse. Go wherever is going to be the cheapest. And as long as it's accredited, just go for it. I so hope this crisis will ultimately lead to a major healthcare reform. Me too, friend. Me too. It really only matters if you want to continue to grad school. There's a clear bias against some school. Snob factor counts as the DMP PhD level. That's true. Academia is a freaking hot mess. It is so snooty. I always thought I wanted to go work in nursing education. And then I have now in my new job, I interact with a lot of people in nursing education. And I'm like, you're all a bunch of petty, no, who are all obsessed with all the letters after their name. I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? Everything I go to look at, I'm like, oh, that's not going to work. I guess I'll just live on YouTube. Go for the cheapest. You will not feel prepared no matter where you go. Also true. Nursing school does not prepare you to be a nurse. Your first job prepares you to be a nurse. Nursing school, they're trying to make, like, nursing is such a hands-on field, and they're trying to make it so fancy, but really it needs to be much more of an apprenticeship type of thing. But they're trying to gain legitimacy by fluffing it up with all this like academia and all this stuff, but it's fluff and it's not helpful in the real world. So just my opinions on that. Other than that, all it really matters. Oh yeah. If you go to the DMP level, I am considering and Rick said I don't feel more prepared than a Mia. And that's how they phrase it. Like, oh, you have your ADN, which is ridiculous, because I would have rather worked with the people who graduated from our ADN programs any day. Any day. I would have rather precepted or had a student nurse that was in the ADN program, because they were so much better prepared. I'm considering an MSN from Capella, but education, and it's also self-paced, very doable in 3 months. Would this be an issue in your opinion? I don't know anything about education, but I mean, hey, if you want to do it, education is so different, because you're not like, I mean, I feel like it would be fine. Because you're not going to end up being someone's healthcare provider. You know what I mean? You're learning how to provide education, which that can be taught fairly quickly. It doesn't have to really be too hands-on. So that I would have less of an issue with. My issue is when like Capella does like an online NP program, and then they're like, oh, they have to show up to clinic for like 1 day. And I'm like, how are you teaching all of your hands-on skills in 1 day? That's nerve-wracking. But I think for education, that would be totally fine. And I like that it's self-paced. I know I think that would be fine. Let me see. It is fluff. Yes, Rick, it is. BSNs are just fluff. Create supplemental materials students can use. I think you're doing that, right? Yes, I'm doing some of that. I do like that. My clinicals were a joke. All I was on the floor was a glorified CNA that could pass out and give pills and give shots. And a lot of this comes back to unsafe staffing ratios, because nurses are so exhausted. They are so stretched thin that they have no time to be a good educator, and they're so stressed already. And then you add a student to it, and it's like, what are we doing here? So that's a huge issue with that, because even I like teaching. I liked having students. And there were many days when I was so stressed at my first nursing job that like the thought of adding a student I'm like drowning. I had a student the very first day I was on my own on the floor. I was already crying when they came and approached me in the supply room and told me I was going to have a student. So like, if you're a student and your nurse seems really cranky, it's probably because they're just really overwhelmed, and you're like the cherry on that. So just be kind, follow along, ask questions like all in one clump, and just see if you can be helpful and learn by osmosis. Our system is not set up well for nursing students. It's not you. It's probably not even them being like really, really mean. They are probably just so frazzled. I'm just worried they'll see on my resume that it was an MSN in 3 months and question if it was enough. I think an MSN in education is different. You know what I mean? Like, I think they understand that it's just classes you have to go through. There is a clinical component. I think you have to do a certain number of hours with them, like in some kind of a shadowing role, but I don't think that it would reflect like negatively because it's just about how quickly you get through the coursework. You know what I mean? If anything, that would just show that you were really diligent and applied to it. 100% about the students. I'm so busy when I work, let alone teach. Just keep up. Exactly. Um, I would tell them that. I was like, if I come off rude, I'm just really stressed. Like, I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at the system that I can't keep up and I can't teach you. And then I feel bad. So I would just explain that. All right, friends. I think that's all of my thoughts on that. Wow, this was 2 hours long. I'm sorry. Oh, but thanks for hanging out. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. This was very helpful and very therapeutic. I appreciate all of you for hanging in there and giving me your opinions, and the discussion on all sides of it and kind of seeing it from different angles and just talking it out. If you ever have any other ideas for things that you would like to discuss that are like happening in the nursing world that we can do a live on, let me know. We're going to do one in a few weeks on setting boundaries. That's something that I've gotten a lot better on as I've gotten older. And there are a lot of boundaries that people will take advantage of in nursing. And I think that's one thing to like guarantee that you have a better, more positive nursing experience is learning to set boundaries and stick to them, even when it makes other people uncomfortable. So we're going to continue with the free therapy trend. I've learned all my therapy from podcasts, so I'm going to give it to you. Obviously, I'm very qualified for this, AKA not qualified at all. But none of my patients could afford therapy either. So I feel like I've gotten a lot of experience as a therapist working in primary care. It's going to be fine. I should add a disclaimer to that video. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Mama Nurse, for being the beautiful angel on my shoulder, offering all of your sage advice. Thank you, Rick, for all of your advice and everyone else who agreed with me. And even if you didn't agree with me, I appreciate you being here. I need water. Yes, they need to wait to have a seasoned nurse take a student rather than a new nurse. It's not fair for either party. It wasn't. That poor nurse, the one that I had on my very first day on my own, that girl, she was great. I basically told her, I said, this is my first day. I don't know what I'm doing. We're going to figure it out together. She was great. She was very supportive of me. She was like she was very helpful emotionally. Emotionally, she was helpful. She also didn't know, she was brand new. She was like in her first clinical ever. So she knew even less than me. So that did make me feel good. She's like, what is the top number on a blood pressure? And I was like, oh, I know that. Don't know any of these medicines I'm giving, but I sure do know what that top number is. Thanks for reminding me. I'm totally qualified to be here. It's fine. The ratio in nursing home is 30 to 40. Is it worth it in the long run? Nursing homes, I could never work in a nursing home. It's so overwhelming. So I don't think so, but that's up for, if it feels good to you, go try it. I'm in a BSN straight out of high school and it's so much fluff. I hate it. I hated it too. I hated it so much. All of the fluff, all of the theory, all of the, who cares? The nursing diagnosis. Oh, just who cares? Who cares? Good night, everyone. Sophia, Moon Fairy, Joshua, Rick, Nicole, Sinead, I will vote for you. Thank you. Come back in 20 years. That's when we'll talk about running our campaign of Unleash Angry Liz. Some of you need to go and work in policy so you can help me because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. We'll convene in 20 years. Maloney, Sinead, Elisa, Miranda just tuned in. They want to put a wage cap, but not on safe ratios because that would cost them money. Miranda, come on. We're trying to cut back on money, not cost money. Silly. We don't care about people here. We just have to pretend like we do. That's them, not me. I like people. Ashley, you're welcome. I'm glad it was educational in between the rambles. See you next time. Bye, Mama Nurse. Bye, JB, Milani, Rick. Have a good night, friends. I will see you next time.